another episode of Craft Conversations. I'm here today at Kitty Mitty Studios with Beth Howley. Hi, Beth.
Hi. Hi there.
Right, so why don't you just start off by telling me a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a spinner and a knitter. I raise Angora rabbits. I have 6 at the moment, and they're all white. I want to increase the herd. I have had as many as 20 in the past. Yeah, and I've sold some and you lose some. And I have to shear them, so every 90 days I shear them. They grow 3.5 inches in 90 days, and I just shear them on my lap in the living room and tip them upside down, do their bellies, trim their toenails, check them over every 90 days. And then I have little jackets to put on them to help them regulate the temperature. So that's what I start with is that fiber, and there's a different appreciation for the fact that it feels like it's still living almost, you know. And I love spinning with that, and I think it also gives you something else that goes into what you create. When you really have a sense that it's real from an animal, and when you cared for that animal. They're living creatures, and they poop, and they have hay, so the hay and the poop all mingle, and that's like, it's so good for growing vegetables. It's such a good soil enrichment, and I just like that part of it, you know, that it's a living kind of cycle, and it's certainly a big part, and like a special kind of part, I feel, in what I do, because, and you know, there's been like lots of people have things to say about Angora, and I have people come here sometimes and they say, oh, I wouldn't touch Angora, and I know why, you know, I know of some of the publicity, but I know lots of people who raise rabbits. I went to Maine to the general meeting of IAGAR, which is the International German Angora Rabbit Breeders Association. And so I went there to learn about them before I got them, and everybody there, it was all women breeders, and all little small herds, you know, just and by a herd, that sounds big, just in the word, but like I have 6, that's still a herd, you know, and it was something very lovely about it all, you know, and about what people were making out of the fiber and all of that kind of stuff. So I just like that I would love to have goats and sheep too, but they're too big for me. Like I couldn't shear a sheep, but rabbits are just perfect. Yeah. So it starts with the bunnies, and that also, the farm work is a really good kind of, gives you a good balance, because if all my time was spent spinning, it's not good for you. No. It's not good for your hips, it's not good for your hands, and knees and all of that kind of stuff. But having, you know, many parts to it, I find is really helpful. Maintains that kind of balance too. It brings the rest of my family into it too, because they help take care of the rabbits. So that's where it starts for me. And then I get all of this, if I'm able, and I sometimes do through people like me out west who have little businesses and they have direct contact with farmers. So sometimes I can get wool from them, which I really love to do. What I use along with the Angora is merino, and I get 28 pounds.
Oh my goodness, how big is that?
Well, of this merino roving in a big, like a continuous snake, and I use that for everything. I'll do like lumpy kind of art stuff with it. I'll do it fine, like everything. And then I also use mohair, and silk goes into a lot of it too, because mohair gives you it's kid mohair, so it's not scritchy, and it gives you a nice haze, and the silk gives a nice luster to the dye. Yeah. So and I sometimes use cashmere too, which is dreamy. And so I have access to that, which is just fantastic. I wish it was a Newfoundland mill. And I do actually have right now a local fleece.
Oh yeah?
Yep, which is very cool, because the thing is, with most of the local fleece, at least that I've seen, is that it's coarse. You know, and often it's not that long, but that's okay when you spin on the wheel. You can spin the short fibers, but it's kind of coarse and not perfect for next to your skin. So the fibers that I get from here, I make sensory blankets. So they're perfect because you don't, what's good of a sensory blanket if it's like soft? You know,
Yeah.
you want stuff to get your fingers into. So that's good. So it's about finding the right use for for whatever fiber it is. This is a sensory blanket. And you can feel the coarseness in some of it, and it's got holes that you can stick your fingers into, and it's got natural stones on the end, and they stay cold. These are amethyst, and they, you know, I don't know, but like natural stones are thought to have certain calming properties and stuff like that. I think they're pretty, and they're cold. Like they give you a different feel, and it's trimmed with angora. So you see the fiber, yeah, the bloom, yeah, which is kind of nice. And then I put a loop on the end of it so that if it is a comfort to somebody, and they are going somewhere stressful and they'd like to have it with them, they don't have to carry it, they can wear it. And the stones are right there, and there you are. This is merino and other sort of mixed fibers that I blended, not that well, on a drum carder. So I'm just learning on the drum carder, but so I'll just show you how I spin that. So my feet make the big wheel turn, and the big wheel is what twists the fiber, and then there's a little band on the bobbin, and that's what draws it in, and I move this little gadget along to fill out my bobbin. And so you can take like what seems like a very little amount of roving and spin quite a long strand of yarn from it. And this little wheel is just, it reads my mind. It's like it's part of me. You recognize what you like and what you don't like. So, or what you don't particularly want for a particular project. So for the Snuggle Bunny, I want coarse fibers. So I know what gives me coarse fibers. I know what to use to achieve that. If I'm going to do something like I'm doing a wedding shawl, so I started designing that shawl at my wheel by my choice of fibers, and I know exactly. I didn't before, but now I have a better sense of exactly what will achieve what's in my mind, how I'll achieve that. So if I use something heavy, it's not going to be cloud-like. If I use something drapey, that's beautiful, but that's not, I'm picturing a cloud around the shoulders. And so I know a very, very fine, you know, a strand of merino, very thin, and a very thin strand of silk. And a little tiny bit of kid mohair will give you just what I want. So before, I would spin something, and it would come out as it came out, and then I would say, what does that look good for? What will I do with that? But I'm just getting to the point now where I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna do it backwards. This is what I want, so now I have to figure out how to spin towards that. So I guess that's just developing, you know? Yeah. And that's I love that. Like I don't ever want to get to a point where I know what I can do, and so I'll just keep doing that. You know, there's too much more. And it's one of those things, you know what it's like, where you have to get to a certain level of proficiency, and when you do, there's all these doors off of there that you could never open until you got to that point. But once you get to that point, it's, oh my goodness, another 50 different avenues to go off of. I love that. Yeah. You learn about yourself when you're making things and doing things that you didn't know. For instance, I didn't know that I was particularly all that creative, really. I didn't know that I can be kind of, you know, bold and have, you know, get excited by things that are outside of what was normal to me. I didn't know that. But you just get more confident, and it becomes more something that you can use rather than something that you need to follow. Yeah. And I guess it's like that with anything, isn't it? You know, you have to get a certain level of comfort before you can start playing. Yeah. And it is, for me, it's playing for sure.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
We'll go back. I know we want to talk a little bit about like craft and nature and how craft connects us to nature was something we wanted to talk about too.
Yeah.
So was there anything you wanted to add to that?
So being a part of that, I think, is very healthy for somebody. You know, being outdoors. We have a little farm that we're not farming now, other than the rabbits, and but just being, you know, in nature has a really, it makes you a little more sensible. The other thing is how nature inspires my work. That's a big thing too. For instance, I was one of these people who thought, you know, this color matches that color, and you don't put that color because that don't match, and like that. But have you ever seen anything in nature that didn't match? Like, that's too silly, you know. So we go back and forth to a little piece of property we have on the Bonavista Peninsula. It's 2.5 hours of uninterrupted knitting. Oh, I love it. On the way out, I knit while I'm out there, and then I knit coming back. It's just beautiful. But seeing what you're passing by on the side of the road and the colors, and sometimes it's intentional. Oh, I gotta put that into a shawl. I can see that. I can see that fireweed in a shawl. But other times, it's almost as if when I'm finished, I'm looking at it, and then I realize that's, you know, like the rusts, and I'm very into golds and lately, and mustardies and that kind of thing, and it's because of nature. So I will also say too that I sometimes dye with natural dyes, and that gives a different set of colors too. I'm gone off on another tangent now, but color naturally achieved is different from this. So this was done with acid dyes, so you do it on heat and water and vinegar. But I don't know if you can see up there, these shawls back here, and there are a couple of skeins of wool, which I'll get now, are done with natural dyes, and they just have a different tone.
Yeah.
And are really beautiful. And I find that you can put any number of different colors that you've dyed with natural dyes together, and they just work beautifully. I've often done it intentionally, just to see, and it just works. And I'm realizing a designer. And that's kind of new for me, and not something I ever imagined. But when I started spinning, I started, you know, producing things that I thought people would want, like hats and mitts and kind of regular things. And you know, in Newfoundland's full of knitters, and they all knit beautiful hats and mitts. And so, you know, do we really need another person doing the same thing? And I got a little bit bored with that. But I sort of got invited, in a way, to submit an idea for a fashion show of wearable art.
Now, I feel like we talked about this a little while ago. Do you want to talk about what you were designing, or is it still?
Okay. No. One's done, and we're allowed to talk about it. So it's called Engulf 2024, and it's a fashion show that will happen in Montreal next year, and where Newfoundland fiber people are invited to make wearable art depicting Newfoundland terrain. And so mine is the berry bog. So it's a tam with the sort of golden leaves and berries and all kinds of vines and stuff like that. And then a shawl that represents the undergrowth, a little bit darker, with roots growing down in a fringe. And anyway, it was so fun. It was so fun, in fact, that I had it done within the week, and the fashion show is not till next year. And I'm now planning another one, another outfit. Yeah, so that really, like, that was so fun. I thought, that's what I want to do. Trouble is, you know, not everybody needs a berry bog hat. And so what's been happening here in my studio, which is I'm so thankful for, is that I spin the wool and put it on my wall for sale. It is what I draw from when I make things, but I sell it as well. So that's what allows me to take the time and do bigger things that will take longer to sell, but I can sell the wool sort of day day to day, and that helps me keep going. The other side of it is, though, when you spin from the raw materials and you start to get into designing,
Yeah.
you start the process right at the spinning level. So yesterday, I was designing, while I was spinning, I was designing a wedding shawl. But I was designing it. I was starting with the wheel. It was the fiber that I wanted, and the drape that I wanted, and the weight that I wanted. So that's kind of new to me, having something in mind when I start spinning.
Yeah.
But it really gives you so many more options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's exciting because I haven't been to your shop in a little while now, but like I'm seeing now that, I guess now that you started with that designing.
Yes.
A little bit more, like I'm seeing
Yes.
more and more, like these caught my eye right away when we first got here today, these little like the leaves there.
Yes, and layered things that you can wear with or without the layers, and different fibers together. Like I love to pair really chunky, bumpy with fine lace.
Yeah.
Like I think that's really cool. So I love the sort of fragile and dainty look of knitting and lace and stuff, but I like to also do that in something that's not dainty.
Yeah.
You know, the same kind of pattern. It's just fun. And
those keeps
you get
going.
to play. You get to do that yourself when you make those decisions, when you do it yourself. Yeah.
It's really exciting. So I guess this is kind of, I mean, you've been building into it for a while though, right?
Yes.
Like, you know, as...
It's true. And being here, that's the beauty of being here too, because you become more emboldened, and you pick up on other people's energy and ideas and stuff like that. Like I feel, I was very timid as a craftsperson. Very, you know, is it okay? Is it good? Do you like, well, and and now I can still get like that sometimes, but now I'm more excited to say, you know, look at this. This is fun, isn't it? Yeah. Like I'm going to be doing. I'm going to do crazy things. Like there's no limit. I'm now planning a photo shoot. I did a beautiful, and this idea came from a customer walking through. I'm doing quite an elaborate, very pretty shawl with lots of detail and lots of angora in it. So it's really fancy. And then, wait for it. So then I'm going to do a miniature version of the same thing.
Okay.
And the photo shoot is going to be of a friend of mine from behind with the shawl on, and next to her is going to be my German Shepherd.
Oh my goodness.
With the miniature shawl on. So I'm going to be doing shawls for dogs if somebody wants a shawl for their dog.
That's so sweet.
But it's just that it's expression and it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun for me as a creator. It's fun for an animal owner if that's what they want. It's a way of expressing themselves. Yeah. So that's the thing. Who knows where you'll go or what you'll do. So there's a whole other part about craft that I love. It's the purpose of craft in and of itself. So as a youth care worker, I know the value of teaching something, working on something together, and becoming a group through that, you know, like a collect, even community projects downstairs, people feel a part of it and a part of what they create. And so we all know, you know, historically, especially in Newfoundland, but anywhere, I think, you know, the grandmothers and the aunties and the mum and the cousins and the children and would get together working on a quilt or a mat or whatever it is, and they would be as a group. So the skill would be taught from the oldest down to the youngest, and so you're learning that, and that's, you know, you're all that good brain stuff and memory and all of that kind of stuff. But it's also being part of a collective, being part of a group that we all, I would suggest, as human beings, we all need. And so, you know, as a youth care worker, I often worked with young people who weren't part of a group, and you know, they weren't necessarily in the family or near their family. And so I have determined that young people need old people. Old people need young people too, but young people definitely need old people. And craft is a way of bringing them together and engaging them in something that's personal to them, and like that's not just by accident. That I don't think so. So I think in reverse, when you have a situation where you have young people who are not connected to older people, craft is a way of creating that in a different, not in a family way, but in just as much in a collective. And I think that's like mentoring through spinning, through knitting, all of that kind of stuff is really, really important. And young people also are so hugely creative. So teaching them, a few basic skills that then they can go nuts with, I think is fantastic.